Hi, hello, hey, hi, 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 hi. My name is Gene. You spell it Gene. Hi, a while back I made a video on 5 tips for minimalist product photography, and that's still one of the best performing videos on my channel, and I get asked quite often for more tips and just things related to that video. And so I thought I would make a follow-up video and share 5 more tips to take better product photos and share some images for you guys. So that's what we're gonna do today. All right, so let's talk about the first tip. That's color, something that I mentioned in my last video. But to get more detailed with what I mean by color theory is when you're shooting for brands and photographing their products, you want to make sure that you're using the colors that are actually used for that branding of that company or brand. If I'm shooting a product that may be for a feminine audience, I'm going to use colors that are more pastel-y, lighter in tone, and just bright. And if I'm shooting a product that's for a more masculine audience, then I'm going to use colors that are a bit more bold, maybe darker in tone, to really just emphasize that product for that audience. The goal is to accentuate the product and use overall color to just really help highlight the message of that product. All right, the second tip is in regards to lighting. Again, another thing that I talked about in my last video, but the reason why I'm mentioning lighting again is because I think personally that it's arguably the most important component to taking great product photography. I didn't show you any of the lights or examples of lighting tools in the last video, and so I thought I would share with you guys and show you guys some of the lighting tools that I use for my product photography. Yeah. Wow. Ew. The first light is a large constant light. This is a light that I've actually used quite a bit for my work. This is by a brand called Godox. Aperture also makes wonderful lights. I typically put some sort of diffusion over this, and will usually use this as a key light and sometimes as a fill light if I'm using multiple lights. But this is a great tool, and the reason why I recommend constant lights over maybe strobes or flashes is because I think especially visually, you can actually see the shaping of the light and modify it, as opposed to strobes and flashes where you have to keep looking at the back of the camera monitor or the camera screen and make sure that the light actually looks the way you want it to. But this allows you to just see it real time, and it's also great for video as well if you are going to shoot video for products. So this is my first recommendation, a constant light. This looks cool with the Pro Mist though.
Yeah, it does.
It's also very hard for me not to play with this. The second type of lighting tool I'll use are small LED panels. This one is actually from a brand called Sandmark. Again, Aperture and other brands make wonderful tools like this. And then this is my friend Eric's light, but this is just a light tube. And you can use these type of tools as well to really shape and accentuate your product. But these are lighting tools that I use quite a bit for my product photography.
Make a crazy face again, ready?
The third type of light is a flash or a strobe. I don't really use this very often for my product photography, just again because it's really hard to visually see the light until you actually look on the back of the screen of the camera. But I will say one of the strongest benefits of using a flash or strobe is the output of light. It's gonna be typically a lot stronger than most constant lights that you can find. And so if you really need a lot of light, strobes and flashes are the way to go. And depending on the brand that you're going to purchase, most camera brands have their own flash units, but you can also get something like a Pro Photo that's quite expensive, but they range in price. So there are affordable options that you can find for flashes and strobes. And then the last light is natural light. It's actually one of the light sources I like to use a lot in my product photography. With that being said, the biggest downside is going to be that your lighting that's available is going to be contingent on the weather and time of day. So unless you've got flexibility with when you're shooting for your products, natural light is great because it's free, but you kind of are at the mercy of what the weather is that day, and again, what time of day you're shooting as well. So those are the lighting tools that I use in my product photography, and I just wanted to show you guys physically what some of those tools actually look like. All right, the third tip is actually one of my favorite tricks, and it's shooting angles. So I think a lot of times as photographers, we're trained to photograph our subjects straight on, but with product photography, sometimes shooting a product straight on can get boring, or the image doesn't really convey that much energy or emotion. And so what I like to do is, if I'm photographing a product and I'm just not getting the image that I'm looking for, even with using dynamic lighting or using specific colors, what I'll change is my shooting angle. So rather than shooting straight on, I will shoot at a downward angle or an upward angle. And when you do that, sometimes you're creating interest in the photo with that angle change, and you can even create drama as well. So that's something that I'm always looking for. I'm always gonna look at the product, shoot it straight on, and then try different angles. And most times when I'm changing my angles, those typically end up being more of my favorite photos.
Kind of like this, Gene? Like this?
Yes, exactly like that. That looks more interesting, doesn't it? More drama. No.
Oh, no.
My fourth tip is really focusing on setting your scene. And I think that the scene that you're gonna photograph your product in is just as important as the product itself, because it helps point towards your subject. And there are a lot of times you can add characters to your product photos via props. So let's say if you're photographing ketchup, this is not a part of the script. Not ketchup, because I've never photographed ketchup, and I have no intention of photographing ketchup. Don't know why I said ketchup. I'll show an example of a photo that I took of cocktails in our studio. And when I took those photos, we tinkered with the type of plating that the cocktails were on. We changed the surfaces. We added things that would go into cocktails, like garnishes and other things that would be found in a cocktail. And so you're gonna see some of those example photos somewhere. I don't know, somewhere on the screen. This is the last tip, tip number 5, and this is to incorporate motion. I know that sounds contradictory to product photography, still photography, but what I'm trying to do a lot in my photos, beyond just taking the safe shots, is find ways to bring motion and energy into the photos. So one of the ways that I like to do that is to change my shutter speeds and tinker or mess around with moving my subject, the camera itself, or something in that scene. So maybe adjusting the light and just changing the shutter speed and really dragging it. So maybe my subject is in focus, but everything else is kind of blurred. That's a fun way to incorporate some motion. I will show some example images of what I mean by that. I've done this with portraits. I've done this with interior photos of people walking across the scene, but there's a lot of ways I think creatively that you can really approach this and use this type of tool to change your shutter speeds to bring motion into your photos. And then the other thing I like to do is not necessarily changing something in the photo itself, but taking a sequence of photos and then stacking those together to create a GIF or GIF, whatever your preference is. I don't know. GIF. I say GIF. GIF?
GIF. He says GIF.
You say GIF?
Like a lunatic.
Yeah, like
You really say GIF?
a proper person.
Like a lunatic.
Is it really GIF though?
Like a psychopath.
how
like
come
a
it's-
proper serial killer.
How come it's GIF if it's with a G?
It's about the like people that actually started using it.
Like giraffe?
Oh.
Like
Also,
giraffe?
Gene. It's not Geen. Oh, yeah.
Like your own name. That's
Ooh.
true.
Gene. Hi, I'm Gene Yoon.
If you want to call it a gift, you call it.
My name is Geen,
Hi, I'm Gene Yoon.
not the G.
Gene loves giraffe.
Gene loves GIF.
Geen loves GIF.
Gene loves gifts of giraffes.
I find that brands love receiving stop motion images in the form of a GIF, GIF, and even creating things like that. They're basically turned into short clips. And so I think that's just a fun way to also get motion out of whatever shoot you're on shooting products. Those are my 5 tips. I hope that these tips were helpful in maybe you taking better product photos. I would love to see your photos. So if you've got example images that you'd like to share, please leave a comment below. I would also love a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.
GIF.
Geen loves giraffe.
Hey, Geen. Hey, Geen. Hey, Geen. Did you ever study geography?
Geography. You missed that one.
What'd you say?
I said, how could you be friends with this gentle guy?
Steven is our gentle giant.
We need a gift for that gentle guy.